I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, February the 19th, brought to you in part by Zactran. BRD is the costliest disease that affects your calves. Studies show on most types of cattle, Zactran is your best return on investment. Remember to observe your 35-day withdrawal period after treatment. For more information, go to Zactran.com or visit with your BI representative. Weather, weight, and death loss. I tell you what, we've got to take that into account. It has been so bitter cold, and I realize it's been bitter cold up in the Midwest and the Northern Plains. That is kind of typical, but we've had bitter cold in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, places like that. Those are big cattle states too, and they're not really used to that. But I tell you what, everybody I talk to says any of these calves that they're seeing, they've had significant weight loss. The cows are sucked down big time. Your feeder cattle have lost a lot of weight, and fat cattle too, especially fat cattle, and a lot of those in the northern plains. You know, when you get 20, 30 below zero, it takes every bit of energy that those cattle are eating just to keep warm, and so they're not gaining. Well, if you're expecting those cattle to gain 3-4 pounds a day, and they're using it all up, and it's been going on for a couple of weeks here, that's significant weight loss. And also the percentage loss of these newborn calves. A lot of guys have started calving in the last 20, 30 days. A lot of them are calving first calf heifers. And everybody you talk to all around the grid are saying I've lost all the ones that I wasn't there for. Because you have to be there to pick those calves up, put them in a hot box, put them in the floor of your pickup, put them in the utility room, get them in the calving barn somewhere where they can get some heat and get out of that frigid cold temperatures. But I tell you what, several people I've talked to said, I've saved all the ones that I was there for, but you can't be there for all of them. And then you think about those smaller producers, and like I said, in parts of Oklahoma, Missouri, especially southern Missouri, Arkansas, north and central Texas they're not used to having to watch those cows calving that close because they're not used to the frigid cold temperatures. Well, they kind of let them cows do it on their own. And if they weren't there for those, they were losing those calves too. You know, I've talked to several people said they expect a 10 to 15% death loss on the calves that have already been born. Some guys are saying it's more like 30. That is significant. And I know we're not in full swing of spring calving, but it's getting pretty close. And a lot of them on these first calf heifers. And like I said, there haven't been many sales around, but some of the few places that I've seen are seeing some of those heiferette kind of things. Those young heifers that either sloughed a calf or lost a calf coming into the market, and they're going to be a lot of them going for slaughter. Some of them will go back out to feed, or they might try to rebreed them or something like that. But I think people need to pay attention to that. So I'm giving USDA, National Ag Statistics Service, a warning. You kind of need to look at this. Don't have to come back with these revisions all the time whenever we get to the point where you guys are finally going to catch up with that. I'm also going to give you an alert, the flooding that they have had in Nebraska and Iowa 2 or 3 years ago. You guys still haven't caught up from that. And we knew that. We were screaming about it back when it happened. They've had revision, but I still don't think they've got back to that. We don't have near as many cattle out there as what they're thinking we do. And then on top of all these losses, not to mention the $200 million worth of phantom cattle that were supposedly in Washington State that weren't there. Where did those cattle go to? These are numbers that need to be taken into account when we're looking at how many cattle we have on hand. I know we're looking at lighter supplies, but I think our supplies are even lighter than what they're posting and what people are thinking. But we've got some premiums to our market on the futures. If you look, but they're starting to die off a little bit, and they always do. When you're looking at a premium futures price out in the front, you've got so many people that are dogpiling it on the short side. It's like an oasis, and when you get to it, it's gone. and we're starting to see that already now. But we sure need to take account to all the weight loss and death loss that we've seen here. Let's look at the board on Thursday. February live cattle futures down 17 cents at 115.12. Sucked that basis right back down nearly to nothing on a few sales in the Northern Plains. April down 122. Like I'm saying, we're losing these back months and our out fronts on our futures now all of a sudden. Down 122. Still at a decent premium there at 122.92. You're going out from there on your back months. They were down $1 to up 67, but the ups were on the farthest out traded months. March feeder cattle down 22 cents at 138.20. April down $1 at 141.75. You go on your back months of feeder cattle down 62 to up 12. Fat cattle trade finally developed on Thursday, but it faded through the day. So the first sales that we heard of was some 114, 115 up in Iowa and in eastern Nebraska. That 115 was pretty much reserved for cattle that are fed in barns, slatted cattle that they call them. They're not carrying near as much tag or mud, haven't been bogging down in that mud being on the slats like that, and so mostly live sales, and so most of those cattle, the 115 was reserved for those in the Northern Plains. But that was in the morning, and then it just backed off from there. And then we saw the Southern Plains sell some cattle at 114, and then we saw those 114 bids pretty much pulled, and the 113 was about the only thing that was available late in the day on Thursday. But we haven't sold very many cattle at all in our 5-area feeding region, but we didn't figure we would because we haven't been able to keep our plants open because of the rolling blackouts in the Southern Plains and the severe weather kind of holding things back, keeping cattle and keeping the workers from coming into the plant. We've had very, very disappointing slaughter this week, and so we may not see much more trade than what we've already seen. But in Iowa, on Thursday, we saw 1,400 head sell. That's all we've seen so far this week. Like I said, from 112 to 115, but those highest prices were reserved for cattle that were fed in sheds. Nebraska, 4,600 confirmed on Thursday, and that's 5,500 for the week for them. That's nothing. 113 to 115 live. We really didn't see a dress market out there. You know, the guys that were in the mud and in the snow and all that, they weren't excited about what the packers were offering on a dress basis. The only dress sales we saw were on some mixed pens, off quality cattle at 180. Kansas, about 4,000 head, 4,600 for the week, a few 113, but mostly all 114 in Kansas. Texas sold 3,000 on Thursday that they had recorded, likely more than that because I heard of sales later in the day that probably didn't get in on that, but 5,700 head for the week, and all of Texas's sales was at 114. But there'll be a few more sales than that they didn't get put in on Thursday's sales, but it's going to be a very small movement. Box beef cutout values continue higher. I tell you what, every time we get some kind of a black swan, and I don't care what it is, even if it's frigid cold temperatures in the south, or if it's a COVID, or if it's this or that, or whatever it is, any kind of a deal, your packers benefit from it. So they were able to keep the market from getting any higher. Market was steady for the most part, but they've been gaining in your wholesale beef prices all week long. Choice cuts $238.85, up $1.34. Selects up $183 at $227.47. Look at your disappointing slaughter for the week. We saw that 380,000 through Thursday. That's pretty disappointing. That's 81,000 less than last week at this time, and 95,000 less than the same week a year ago. Although Thursday was the best week we've seen so far, or best day we've seen so far this week at 111,000, that's still disappointing. But that's a hump to get over a little bit, guys, because we can't get that back. Your actual slaughter information come in for the week ending February the 6th. Average dress steer carcass weights come down another pound from the previous week's report to 919 pounds. We're expecting that to get progressively more, losing those weights, but still lighter yet, and that helps just a little bit. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, your real-time index on DV auction. 140.86, and it's just continued to grow even though we didn't have very many sales all week because of the cold weather. But that was up $1.11 from the end of Wednesday's trade there. Your CME cash feeder cattle index is sitting way back there at 136.29 on the latest available, but they just don't have reporters in as many of those Northern Plains sales that went ahead and had auctions this week because they're used to the cold weather. They're heavily influenced by those big high volume markets that did not hold a sale this week. Let's look at some of your bigger sales on Thursday. Ogallala livestock auction, Ogallala, Nebraska, 4,800 head there. Really good sale. Look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central through DV auction. Look at some of your best tested weights. 1,097 head of 6-weight steers, average 636 at 160.08. The average on all your 6-weight steers, it averaged over 635. 645 head of steers in the 7-weight category, averaged 740 at 149.14. Very impressive. Look at your best tested weights of heifers. 520 head of your 7-weight heifers, average 742 at 137.64. And the stick out deal I saw in Ogallala was 144 steers, weighed 727 at $154. Wow, that was very, very impressive. How about Elgin, Nebraska? Elgin livestock sales. Ted Baum and company up there, his brothers, but mostly him and his wife. 1,500 head on their sale that they were supposed to have on Monday. It got postponed a little bit, but still had a heck of a sale and didn't hurt them a bit. Look at this automated market report out of Elgin livestock sales. And your best tested weights, 328 head of steers in the 7-weight category, average 763 at 141.22. 409 head of the 8-weight steers averaged 840 at 138.84, and 117 head of 9-weight steers averaged 921 at 137.20. I was down here at, or out here, I guess, at Fallon, Nevada, livestock marketing. They were expecting 6,000 head for this sale. I was having trouble coming out. I've been helping them on the once a month feeder cattle specials, but the cattle just kept coming. And I tell you, tons of those light stalker type, really green cattle there. Man, just droves and droves of them. They ended up with over 8,000 head. Well, they don't start till noon, and that's Pacific because a lot of the buyers come over from California, and it takes a while for them to get there. That's when they always start at noon. Well, it's getting pretty late here, and we've sold a little over half of them. I guess we're going to sell till midnight and then crank back up at 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific and finish off the rest of them. But just come in here to do this report and just got through selling a big long string of fancy steers there, and I tell you what, they would just explode if you could just get wheels under them and get them out there and just kind of keep them warmed up until you could turn out in the Flint Hills or the Osage or somewhere like that. Or maybe if you had some short wheat, you could turn out or graze out, which there's not going to be much of that if the wheat price doesn't go down a little bit. But 249 head of these steer calves, you see the picture there, 453 pounds on the average, bring $195. And that's nothing to sneeze at here in the Midwest, the Southern Plains, or anywhere. Where we did have a few that small bunches that sold higher than that. That's a pretty good rip on a big long string of steers like that. They had all their shots, long time weaned and everything. Let's talk about a couple other individual quotes. How about Mitchell, South Dakota? 86 head, 622 pound steer calves bring 165.35, weighing in the sixes of waist, over 165. Very impressive. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday, and your Zach Tran top quote for the day, come out of Ogallala, Nebraska. 120 head, 810 pound steers bring $145. That's your feeder flash for Friday.